In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the LinkedIn Ads Conversions API through server-side Google Tag Manager. So by the end of the video, you'll know all the steps required to set up the LinkedIn Ads Conversions API yourself. Let's dive in. Hey and welcome to the channel. My name is Leon. This channel exists to help you make better decisions in your daily work using your web stats. And I want to thank everyone that has been liking my videos and has subscribed to the channel recently, because that really helps me get these videos out to as many people as I can. Before we head over to the tutorial, I want to bring your attention to a service called Stape. Stape is what I believe the easiest way to get started with server-side tracking. And if you use the affiliate link in the video description, not only do you support the channel at no extra cost to you, but you also receive my free mini course on server-side tracking with Stape. Head over to the video description for more information on that. I also created a short cheat sheet on how to grow your website traffic. So if you're interested, you can download that as well via the link down below. Now let's move over to the tutorial. All right, we're in the LinkedIn Ads Campaign Manager, and I wanted to show you real quick what we're gonna accomplish today. I'm under measurement and then conversion tracking. And as you can see, I have two conversions set up, both with the same name. It's a contact form submit. So whenever somebody enters a contact form on my site, I want to track that, but I'm going to track that both ways, both through the regular LinkedIn Insights tag and through the LinkedIn Conversions API. So you have two conversions tracking the same contact form. And internally, we're going to send a so-called event ID. I will show you and explain to you how that works. But the reason that we do that is so LinkedIn knows that it is the same contact form submit. So it can deduplicate the double hits. So for every conversion, it will get 2 hits from the Conversions API and 1 from the LinkedIn Insights tag. We don't want to double count, so we're going to send an event ID as well. So LinkedIn internally will know that it is the same contact form submit. If you want to know more about the LinkedIn recommendation, you can go to this page. I will link it down below, but here it says we recommend that advertisers send events both through the Insights tag or the image pixel and the Conversions API for increased reliability. So that's what I'm gonna show you today. And what we want to do here is we want to make 2 conversions for a single conversion event because we have 2 different routes, and we want to get that to the status active. All right, before we head over to the full setup of your LinkedIn Conversions API, I want to go over what I covered in previous tutorials, because this video builds upon a couple of other concepts that I'm not going to explain again. First of all, I explained how to set up a server container. So here I have a server-side Google Tag Manager container that runs on a Stape instance. And of course, I have my regular container installed on my site as well. In a separate video, I explained how to set up Google Analytics on a server container. So this is a server-side setup for Google Analytics right here. And I explained how consent mode works in a server-side Google Tag Manager setup. So if you haven't watched those videos, you can still go ahead and watch this first, but you might want to watch those later to grasp the full idea. So please know that I'm not going to repeat myself in full length. So if you haven't watched those, I will post links in the video description to those tutorials. All right, let me go over how to set up your LinkedIn Insights tag on a client side on your regular Google Tag Manager container. And chances are that you've already done that, but I still recommend that you watch these steps first, because in a server-side Google Tag Manager setup, there are a couple of things that we do differently here that you wouldn't do otherwise. So even if you already have your LinkedIn Insights tag set up, I still recommend that you watch the next couple of minutes. All right, so let's go in and let's add a new tag here. So I like to number my tags. And as you can see here, Google Analytics is at number 1 and Meta Ads at number 2. So I'm gonna go LinkedIn on number 3, LinkedIn Insights. And this is the base tag that we are going to use to just track regular page views. And under tag configuration, there is a tag called LinkedIn Insights, but LinkedIn recommends to not use this one because they have created a version 2 of this. And you can find that in the community template gallery. So under the template gallery, if we look up LinkedIn, it's right here, LinkedIn Insight tag 2.0. I'm gonna add this to my workspace. And of course, it's going to ask us for a couple of fields here. So before we are going to fill out those fields, I want to trigger this on initialization all pages. Hello, this is me from the future. I'm still recording this video, but I noticed that I made a slight error when I created the LinkedIn Insights tag. I chose the initialization all pages trigger for that tag, but that is actually not the best option here. If you look at the meta ads page view tag here, I chose the cookie consent update tag here, and the Google Analytics 4 event, page view event, is also linked to the cookie consent update. And this trigger, it's a Cookiebot trigger. I'm using event name cookie consent update. If you're not using Cookiebot, please look in the documentation. Most consent management platforms have this. It's consent aware, because on the first page load of your user's visit, consent is not there. They have not given cookie consent, especially if it's the first visit that that user does. So they need to give consent, and this trigger will fire after a user has given consent. And that's a lot better, because if you do that before a user has given consent, the LinkedIn Insights tag will be blocked. So we will not track that first page load, and it's really important. And also it's very important for deduplication, and we're going to do that in the last chapter of this video. But for deduplication, it's also very important that LinkedIn Insights tag is exactly matched to the same trigger as the page view event here. So let me just change that real quick here. So I'm going to remove the initialization all pages event here, and I'm going to choose the cookie consent update trigger. And if you want to know more about that trigger, please go and watch the consent mode video that I did on server-side Google Tag Manager. All right, let's move on with the tutorial. All right, let me show you how to fill out the LinkedIn partner ID here. The event ID is also very important, but I'm going to do that in a separate section at the end of the video. So LinkedIn partner ID is the field that we need right now. And I'm going to pull that from the LinkedIn Ads Campaign Manager. And I'm under Data, and I'm under Signals Manager. And in this screen, I have an Insight tag button. If I scroll down, I can choose, I will use a tag manager. And here is my partner ID. So I'm going to click this and going to copy this to my clipboard. I'm going to go back into my client-side LinkedIn Insights tag. And here I could just paste it in here. But if you have been following me for a while, you know that I like to make variables for these kinds of values. So I'm going to press this button. Let me just show you how this works. I'm going to make a new variable here. I'm going to call this LinkedIn Partner ID. And under variable configuration, I'm going to choose a constant variable, and I'm going to paste in the value from my partner ID. I'm going to paste it in here. And every time I reference this variable, it will just return this value. And it's just a little time saver, so I don't need to go into the campaign manager all the time whenever I need that ID. So as you can see here, I just referenced this variable, and it's going to pull in the right partner ID for me. Again, event ID is also very important, but I'm gonna cover that later on in the tutorial, so stay tuned. We're not ready here, but I'm gonna save it. And I want to make a second tag for my contact form. And as you can see here, I did the same for Google Analytics. There's just a config page view tag here, but I've also created a contact form submit right here that runs on a thank you page trigger. It's a very simple trigger, a DOM ready, that runs on page path contains contact bedankt. And it's just my thank you page URL. I hope you're familiar with thank you pages, but this is the page that comes after you have submitted your contact form. And I'm gonna reuse that same trigger. So if you want to know exactly how I created this trigger, just go back and watch the Google Analytics setup tutorial that I will link down below. So we're gonna create the same conversion, but then we're gonna send it to LinkedIn ads. And as you can see here under measurement and then conversion tracking, I already created it, but I'm gonna recreate it on screen so you know the steps that are required. So under create conversion, I'm gonna create an insight tag conversion. And I'm gonna call this contact form submit. And in between brackets, I'm gonna say web. So I know this is the insights tag and not the conversions API. I can select a category. So for me, a contact form submit is a lead. So I'm gonna choose that. I'm gonna skip the value right now. As a time frame, I'm gonna choose 30 days and 7 days for views, but you could increase that to 90 days if you want to. And attribution model, I'm gonna leave that to the default as well. And I'm gonna press next. Here I'm gonna say tag manager and event specific. So here it will repeat my partner ID, but we have already saved that, so we do not need that. We do need the conversion ID. So I'm gonna copy that, and now I can go into Google Tag Manager. I can create a new tag that I'm gonna call 0302 LinkedIn ads and then contact form. I'm gonna make a new tag based on the LinkedIn Insights tag 2.0, and because we've already imported it, it's listed under custom. So LinkedIn Insights tag 2.0. Under partner ID, we've already saved a partner ID variable, so LinkedIn partner ID, and the conversion ID, I'm going to paste it in right here. I'm not going to make a variable for this because I don't need to reuse this anywhere. The partner ID is very specific for this tag only, so that's why I'm not going to make a variable for this. Again, the event ID field is very important, but I'm going to cover this later on in the tutorial. I want to make a separate section on that. So please keep watching because the event ID is really important. Don't stop after this. Under triggering, again, I'm going to reuse the contact form. So the thank you page trigger that I created earlier in a earlier tutorial. I'm going to hit save. And this is how you set up LinkedIn ads conversion in your client-side Google Tag Manager container. All right, the next step here is to manage consent for our new tags. So we could do that on the tags themselves. You need to open them up and then go under advanced settings and then consent settings. But I like to use this consent overview screen right here. So let's open that up and it says consent not configured for these two tags. And because these are marketing tags, I'm gonna both select them and I'm gonna mark these. So we need additional consent. And then I'm gonna say add storage. So permission for marketing cookies is required for these two tags. And I'm gonna hit save. Yeah, there you go. All right, let's test every step of the way if our setup is still working. So I'm gonna hit preview mode and I'm gonna write down my URL right here. And I'm also gonna send a LinkedIn click parameter. And we do that by hitting our site and then question mark and then LinkedIn. So LI underscore FAT underscore ID and then is, and then I like to just 1, 2, 3. Because every time a user will click an ad in LinkedIn, it's going to generate a unique click ID that our whole setup will need in order to attribute conversions back to that advertisement click. So that's why I'm going to make a test ID. We need to check if this ID is going to end up in a cookie with the same name. So I'm going to connect and here is my site. Let's just test if my tag has been fired. Yes, the LinkedIn Insights tag has fired. So let's test if the click ID is set in a cookie. So right click on your page and then press inspect. You will get the developer tools right here, and it might feel a little bit overwhelming at first to see all this code, but don't feel like that because we need a very, very small section that I'm gonna show you. So at the top here, you have different tabs and we are going into the application tab. And because you can rearrange this, it might be somewhere else. It might be even down here under this arrow, but you need the application tab. And the application tab to the left, there's a section called cookies. And if you open up that section, you will find your own domain and you need to press your own domain. So on my site is leonkorteweg.nl. So this is my own domain. This is where all your first party cookies are stored. And in this list, if everything has been set up correctly, you will find the click ID from LinkedIn. It has the same name. So LY or LI and then FAT ID. And here is the value 1, 2, 3. It's exactly the same value that you will see here. So the next thing that I want to test here is I want to submit a contact form. So test and then send. So let's go back and see if our conversion has been submitted. Yeah, there you go. LinkedIn ads contact form fired 1 time. And if I go back into my LinkedIn screen, oh, I forgot to submit. So I need to probably. So I just submitted, so I'm gonna again refresh the thank you page. Let's see if this works immediately. No, so we're gonna check back later if this works. It says unverified at the moment. I think it just needs a little bit of time. Let's move on to the server side, Google Tag Manager conversion. Let me show you how to set that up as well. All right, we're here in my server-side Google Tag Manager container. And here I want to show you again how to set up LinkedIn tracking, but now through the LinkedIn Ads Conversions API. In the server-side Google Tag Manager container, we do not have a consent overview like we used in our client container. We do not have that in the server-side Google Tag Manager container. And that's why we need to put a little more effort in our triggers. So as you can see here with meta ads, in the previous meta ads tutorial, I created a all pages trigger with consent. And I also created a contact form submit trigger with consent. And in this tutorial, I'm going to reuse those triggers. So let me just open them up because we will be sending a page view and a contact form submit or a conversion tag to LinkedIn. And I'm going to reuse these triggers. So let me open up all pages with consent. It's just a regular page view trigger, really simple, but then with one condition, and that is that we have permission to set marketing trackers on our site. And if that consent is not there, we will not be sending these events. And that's the way at the moment how you work with consent in a server-side Google Tag Manager container. And if you want to know exactly how I did this, I recommend that you go back and watch the consent mode tutorial and the meta ads tutorial. I will link those both down below again. So the other trigger, kind of the same. So it's a contact form submit event, a GA4 event that enters my server-side Google Tag Manager container. I want to use that as a trigger for my LinkedIn ads tag. But again, I have the same condition here. I will only send it if consent mode ad storage is set to granted. All right, so we're gonna make our first LinkedIn tag, and I'm gonna press new. And again, I have 4 groups of tags here, 01, 02, 03 for Google Ads. So LinkedIn will be number 4. You don't need to do this, but I like to number my tags to keep things organized. And it's a page view tag. And under tag configuration, we need to go into the community template gallery and we need to look for LinkedIn. And as you can see, there are 2 templates. You have the official LinkedIn template and you have the Stape template. And the Stape template is actually a little bit better. So we have a little bit more options, a little bit more fields that we can use. So I'm going to use the LinkedIn Conversions API template by Stape. And I'm going to add that to the workspace here. And as soon as we have added that, we can do a couple of things. We can track page views or we can track conversions. And to be honest, the page view event type doesn't track anything. The only reason that it's there, it's basically a fallback. Let's go back real quick to what we did in the previous section, the client container. We have the LinkedIn Insights tag here, and I showed you that the click ID is stored in a cookie. But there is a scenario where this tag is blocked by an ad blocker. And if that is blocked, you will not get the click ID from the URL. So what we want to do here is we are setting the page view tag, and the only thing that this does is it will look for a LinkedIn click ID parameter in the URLs and we will store it in a cookie. However, it will only work if you have a Stape custom loader. So there's a full documentation right here. I will link it down below. So if you're on Stape and if you're using the custom loader, you're safe to use this. Or if you are using the Stape data tag, but I don't believe many people actually do that. But if you don't have that, you can maybe even skip this, or you can do it anyway and set up the custom loader later on. I might do a video on the custom loader in the future. I probably will. But I am using Stape. I am using the custom loader, or I will use it in the future. So I'm going to set up this tag. So I'm going to select page view here, and as a trigger, I'm going to use the all pages with consent trigger that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to save this tag. And the next tag that I want to create is a contact form submission tag. And for that, I'm going to go back into the campaign manager and the conversion tracking. And of course, I've already created that in the past, but I'm going to recreate it now on screen so you know all the steps that are needed to set this up. So under create conversion, I'm going to create a conversions API conversion, and I'm going to give this the same name. So contact form submit, but now with the word server in brackets. The category is the same. I'm not going to use a value, and I'm going to mirror the conversion window from the other conversion. So I want both conversions to have the same conversion window. And of course, you can also just increase both of them, but the recommendation is to keep the conversion window the same as the client-side conversion, the web conversion. So I'm gonna leave this to the default. I'm gonna press next step. I'm gonna use Google Tag Manager. I'm gonna click continue. It will show a pop-up where you need to click your login. So I've just given access, and then you will be forwarded to this screen. And what LinkedIn likes to do is it likes to get permission to your Tag Manager account and then set it up for you. But I found that this gets really messy because LinkedIn doesn't know my naming convention. It doesn't know my trigger setup. So I don't want programs to automatically set up things for me. And this is not easy, but there is a way to say, okay, I want to bypass this and I want to set this up later. So I'm going to press this button so LinkedIn will not set it up for me. I want to set it up myself, basically. So set up later, and then I'm going to say next step, and then I'm going to press create. So now I have a web conversion and a server conversion, and I'm going to go back into my server conversion. And right now here in the domain, in the top bar, if I'm just going to copy and paste this in a text file, you will find that the URL has a couple of numbers in it. So accounts and then you have a number, and then conversions, and then you have a number. And this is the conversion ID that we're gonna need. So I'm gonna copy this to my clipboard. So again, you don't get a number from this screen, you need to copy it from your URL. So here in your URL, you have accounts and ID, don't use that, but then you have conversions, and then you have an ID, and that's the one that we're gonna use. So I'm gonna go back to my server-side Google Tag Manager container. I'm gonna press new, I'm gonna say 0402, LinkedIn, contact form. Under tag configuration, I'm gonna choose the LinkedIn Conversions API. So let's open that up. This time I'm gonna select conversion, and the conversion rule ID is the conversion ID that I got from my URL right here. Then we need an access token. We need to go back into the campaign manager. I'm gonna go back under data, signals manager, and then Google Tag Manager. Just scroll down. Here is a button that says generate token, and you can just open this up. The first time that you press this, it will also ask you to log in. Just do that. I've already done that before. Here you can copy the token, and I'm gonna go over to my server side, Google Tag Manager container, and here I'm gonna store the token in a variable. So again, LinkedIn access token. It's a constant value, and every time I need my token, I can just reference this variable. So if I need to make more conversions, I can just reuse this token. So under event data override, there's one more value that we, there's one more value that we need to do under user ID override, and that is the LinkedIn first party ads tracking. And this is the cookie that we tested earlier. So we need to read the cookie value. It's the LinkedIn click ID value from the cookie. We can do that directly from the server container. So under property value, I'm going to press this button, and we're going to create a variable with the name LinkedIn click ID. And under variable configuration, we're going to make a cookie based variable. So it's here at the top. And the cookie name is li_fat_id. We do not need to decode. Let me just save it. And again, also here, we will need to set an event ID, but I'm going to explain that later. I want to take some time explaining it to you well enough. So hang on, this is important, but I'm going to do that later. And under triggering, I'm going to choose the contact form submit with consent trigger that I showed you earlier as well. I'm going to hit save. So let's test if this is all working. So I'm going to hit preview mode in my server container. So this is empty. I'm gonna hit preview mode in my regular container as well. Continue. This is running in preview mode. Here is the tag assistant. And I see that the LinkedIn Insights tag has fired. And if I go into my server container in the debug screen, if I open up the page view, let's see what happens here. So the LinkedIn page view tag has succeeded. So that is working. Under variables, I want to know, is my LinkedIn click ID here? So LinkedIn click ID is 123, and that is the URL value, the click ID value that I'm setting here. So let's just, can we do something different here without losing the tag assistant? Let's try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I've just lost the tag assistant. Let's just close this. Let's hit preview again. Just, here I'm gonna say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, connect. Let's just test if the click ID is coming through. So LinkedIn Insights has fired here. I have a new page view. And right now the LinkedIn click ID is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is working. Let's test if our conversion is working as well. I'm going to go into the contact form. I'm going to say test.nl. I'm going to hit send. So I'm being forwarded to the thank you page. This is where the contact form on the front end has fired. So this is working. But on the back end, I have received contact form submit event. And here is a LinkedIn contact form, and that has succeeded. Let's go back into the LinkedIn signals manager or under measurement and then conversion tracking. So the server is set to active right now. The web is not yet active. Maybe it needs a little bit more time. In the meanwhile, there's one more step that we need to take, and that is to deduplicate. So we're both tracking the server events from our contact form, and we're tracking the web events. So the server events are the conversions API, the web events are the Insights tag events, but we want to deduplicate. So one conversion, we don't want that double counted, so we need to deduplicate that, and we're going to do that through an event ID. So hang on, I will explain to you how that works in the next section. The process of deduplicating our events starts in our client side, in our regular container. And what we need is a unique event ID. We can just generate that through a variable. And there's no native variable that can do this. So what I have done is I went through to new, and then under variable configuration, I went to the community template gallery. Because if you look for event ID here, so event ID, you will get a number of tag types, and the unique event ID by Stape, of course, is good. I'm always using this one, the event ID by Marcus Barsch, I believe. Great guy, also a YouTuber. Go watch his videos if you know German. He has made this variable template that I use all the time for this. Just import it. I have already done that in a previous tutorial, so I have it here under custom templates. So I'm gonna click it. There are no settings needed, so you can just name this event ID and then hit save. I already have this, so this will probably not accept it. So I'm gonna close it, but you will get an event ID variable, and you need that for deduplicating all events. All right, we have created our event ID, our unique event ID, so we can deduplicate it, but we need to add that event ID to both the client-side LinkedIn Insights tag and also to our server tags. So let's do the LinkedIn Insights tag first. So they are both here. Let's open up the LinkedIn Insights tag here, and there is an event ID field. So you just press this button. We already created the event ID, so just choose it here and save the tag. We're gonna do the same thing with our contact form tag. Let's open that up. There's an event ID field here. Press this button, add the event ID variable that we created earlier, and hit save. So now all our insights tag on the client-side container have the event ID, and we can even test this by hitting preview. So now my site has reloaded in preview mode. Go back to the tag assistant. Let's find the LinkedIn Insights tag here. If I open that up, it has fired on cookie consent update. If I press that, it takes me to that event right here. And we see that the event ID on this moment was 818.10. So this is the unique event ID for this event. So that's how we know that our LinkedIn Insights tags have the unique event ID sent along with them. So now we need to do the same thing with our server events. So if I go into the server container, these tags also need the same unique event ID. Of course, you're wondering, like, how are we going to do this? Well, these tags run on incoming GA4 hits. So if you have watched the other tutorials as well, you know that these tags are responsible for triggering everything in this container. So it all starts with setting up the Google Analytics configuration and adding the unique event ID to these tags. And I have already done this in previous tutorials, so let me just show you how I have done this. So if I open up my page view tag right here, you'll find an event parameter with the name event_ID. And I recommend that you use exactly this name, this parameter name. And then as value, I just inserted the event ID that we created earlier. So you can just, again, press this button and just pop in that variable. And I not only did this with the page view tag, but I also did this with the contact form submit tag. So the contact form submit tag has an event ID parameter with that variable. And every time this event runs, it contains an event ID with that key. And the thing is that these tags are so clever that they recognize that parameter value and they will forward that to LinkedIn. So all we need to do is just include the event ID parameters on all your GA4 events, and your LinkedIn conversion API tag will automatically pick up that value. You do not need to work with variables here. It will automatically recognize it and forward that to LinkedIn ads. So let's test if this is actually working. So I'm gonna hit preview again. Yeah, there we go. So LinkedIn Insights has fired with event ID 85.10. Well, the page view is not really mirrored in the server container. This doesn't really track anything. So let's go into our contact form and test if that is also working. So let's hit test at test.nl. Let's hit send. So now let's go to the summary. We have a contact form submit. It's fired one time. It's fired on DOM ready. So it has an event ID of 543.2. So let's go into the preview mode of the server container as well. Let's scroll to the top and it has a contact form submit event here and LinkedIn contact form that has succeeded here. So that's important to know. Let's open that up. Let's see show more. let's say I want to see the values. So it has the first party ID. So this is the click ID. This is also important. This has a conversion rule ID. And let's see if the event ID is also here. Yeah, event ID 543.2. So we didn't set it in the field specifically, but because we are using the GA4 tags and we're using that parameter value event underscore ID, it automatically recognizes it and it will forward that event ID to LinkedIn. All right, now let's also check if our conversions are marked as active. So I'm going to refresh my conversion tracking window and in the campaign manager, so under measurement conversion tracking. And now I see that both the contact form submit server event and the contact form submit web event are both set to active. And this is how you set up your LinkedIn Ads Conversions API through server-side Google Tag Manager. All right, that's it for today. I hope this video was clear. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Also, if you have suggestions for other videos, I would love to hear from you. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing because that really helps me get these videos out to as many people as I can. I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.